إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شر أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and welcome to our guidance for the guided, something that we will be running inshallah if Allah gives us the strength and the himmah throughout Ramadan at 9:45. We said yesterday that we chose a late time, which is good in a way because there's always something I have to do between Taraweeh and before we go live, and today was no different either. Today there is going to be two little things we need to do, administrative tasks, before we go into the explanation of the Quran. The first, there is one question which has come. We're not going to be answering questions. I said that at the outset. We're not going to be answering questions. The questions we will collate and we will answer them, inshallah, on Wednesday, where instead of the normal guidance for the guided, it will be fiqh hour. Okay, so that will be, inshallah, next Wednesday. But there's one question which is specific to moon sighting. So we'll answer that specific question, which is to moon sighting, because moon sighting has obviously just occurred. So people will be keen to know what the answer is. So let me get that question. Where are we? There we go. So, Assalamu alaikum. Apologies in advance, Mufti, but another moon question. At least you apologized. I live in Bolton, which is a city, well, a town, I think it is, not too far from where I live, where the majority of masjid of our tradition, if not all, follow the claimed Saudi sightings. I know in my heart this method is incorrect, and the result of so-called sightings cannot be trusted. Unfortunately, in Bolton, there is very little noise to adopt a more trustworthy, cautious moon sighting criteria, such as wifaq al-ulama. And the feeling on the ground is that we would only switch if our local ulama made an explicit statement which said to move away from Saudi sightings now. Until this happens, the community will remain with the status quo, I believe. In this instance, should I continue to follow Saudi or switch to wifaq al-ulama criteria? But in doing so, I would be completely alone in my large family, wider community, and masjid. Or should I continue to follow the majority, even though I know it to be incorrect? If you could help Mufti, as I'm truly stuck on this matter. And lastly, what work is wifaq al-ulama doing to educate the masses on this matter, and more importantly, bring the respected ulama together to a common position? Okay, firstly, you have to make a stand somewhere, Ismail. You have to make a stand somewhere. And initially it will be difficult. So you need to find in your local area which masjid does provide these services. I guess the advantage is that your Taraweeh will never be before Saudi's sightings. So therefore you can join the Taraweeh wherever you go. So that's not an issue. It is just the Eid Salah that you need to be mainly concerned about, to make sure that your Eid Salah, because the chances of both Saudi and local regional being on the same day may not be possible. So you need to have alternative arrangements. It just so happened there is a masjid not too far from where I live where the committee member, the chair, just got in touch with me yesterday, in fact, asking me to make myself available for the Eid Salah for local regional sighting. The masjid itself predominantly provides for a Saudi following, but they have a growing now local regional following. So he wants to make sure that both communities are catered for. The masjid itself doesn't have a particular position. So that's the best you can do. Okay. In terms of educating, subhanAllah, I have personally traveled to several cities since probably around 2015, 16. So coming up to 10 years. As far down south as South London, and probably as high as or as north as, I don't know, I think I've gone past Manchester or whatever it's been. So, and I've spent, at least once a year or twice a year that I've been giving presentations. During COVID, I gave an online presentation to the States as well. I have on this very channel lots of videos about moon sighting. I have on numerous other platforms discussed moon sighting. So, and then that's just me. There's been other colleagues of mine, most recently during the winter break, there was a gathering held in Blackburn, which is not too far from Bolton, where this very same issue was addressed. So there is as much as work as we can do, but that's, that's as best as we can do, inshallah. May Allah give tawfiq. Okay. So as I said, all the other questions, they will be answered in our normal slot. So any questions from now will be answered on our normal day, which is Wednesday, and that will be also 9:45. But instead of Barak Lafik, Amin. And instead of Wednesday, we won't have guidance for the guided on Wednesdays. We will have Fiqhour on Wednesdays. So any questions which come on the Markaz, al-Ifta, wal-Qāḍī groups, we will answer them. Today, specifically, obviously, Quran explanation, Quran tafsir, very mukhtasar tafsir, of course. But the key thing is that I'm trying to make people more aware of how the Quran is so integral to their lives. So that's the purpose. But before we do that as well, I remember I said there's 2 administrative tasks I have. The second administrative task that I have is, as you probably know, there's an organization that I'm involved with called Andaroon Finance. Find it online, andaroonfinance.co.uk. And primarily our focus is on home purchase plans. And we have a colleague who, alhamdulillah, is qualified in that area. And so what we did was we offered a prize, okay, to people. If they were to enter, what they would get is 2 winners. Let me read it exactly so that I don't get into trouble. Where are we? So what would happen is that the 2 people will get a full fee waiver. Okay, 2 will get a full fee waiver from the broker, and 5 will get for half price. So whilst I was walking from the masjid and organizing this, then I rang my daughter and I sent the list of names, and she wrote them on pieces of paper, which you can see possibly in there. All right. She wrote them on pieces of paper, and then she screwed those pieces of paper up. I've literally just walked in. She had them left on my desk. I just literally picked up a glass from downstairs on my way up. I don't even know what is written on these pieces of paper, and I've thrown them into here. So what we're going to do is now we're going to draw out these names. So give it a swirl. I don't know if that makes any difference whatsoever. I'll pick one name out. Bismillah. Okay. Feels like one piece of paper. So this is the first name. I hope Maulana is watching. We've gone through a great effort to organize this. So here we go. And the first name is Yusuf Daji. Okay. This Yusuf Daji, he will get a full fee waiver. Okay, that's number 1. I'll put them there. So that's full fee waiver number 1, Yusuf Daji. Number 2. Okay, let's get the next full fee waiver out. Let's go for that one. All right. And this name is, I feel like this is like a World Cup draw or something, It's always England versus Poland. And now we've got Abdullah Motara. Okay, so there are the 2 full fee waivers. Let me text more now, Let me send me a voice note. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are live. I hope you're watching. The winners have been drawn. We're now going to go for the next 5. Okay, so now we're going to select 5, which will be half price. Okay, so they're the 2 that get full fee waiver. The next 5 are half price. So let's see what we get now. Number 1, which is half price. And that is Osama Karolia. Okay, that's 1. Osama Karolia. Next one. Very tense, isn't it? The next one is Munira Patel. Okay, that's 2 we've got so far. Another 3 to draw. Getting a nice so 3 men and 1 woman so far. Let's getting a reasonable balance. Let's see if we get another sister drawn out. Well, no. Osama Barucha. Okay. Well, I guess more chaps would have requested information or attempted it than ladies, possibly. Next one for number 3. Number 3 is Adil Laher. Okay, that's 4. And the last one, let's give it one more quick swirl and pick out the last one. The last one is this little fella here. And this little fella is Muhammad. That's very short and sweet. I hope there's only one Muhammad. Otherwise, we're in for trouble. Okay. I hope there's only one Muhammad. Maulana, get back to me if there's more than one Muhammad. I'm thinking there's only one Muhammad. Yes, there's one Muhammad right at the bottom. Okay, good. So that's that done. Okay, so these people will be notified by Andurun Finance. I'll type it in here so you can have access to it. Have a look at it. It's very useful. Okay, it's very useful for children and also for adults. There's lots of different things on there. Andurun Finance. I hope I spelled it correctly. There's lots of useful tools on there for children to learn about finance, to learn about zakat, to learn about, saving and all the rest of it, and also for adults as well. So please do make it visit. Alhamdulillah, with that done, administration task complete. We can now return to the task in hand, which is to find my glasses, which I have, alhamdulillah. And next, what we'll do is we will come to the ruku we left on. So as you know, we completed one ruku, starting of the fourth juz, and we're going to carry on from there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ويا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Or those of you who believe. So meaning that this is you'll see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will address sometimes Ya Ahl al-Kitab, Ya Ayyuhan Nas, Ya Ayyuhal Ladhina Amanu. And these are kind of the three gradations of people. Meaning An-Nas is anybody, okay, mankind. And then we have Ya Ahl Kitab, the people of the book. And then we have Ya Ayyuhal Ladhina Amanu, which is specifically those people who brought Iman. So those people who brought Iman, he reminds, Allah says, he says, Ittaqullah haqqa tuqatihi. Have reverence and consciousness and to a certain extent fear of Allah, the right that he should have, haqqa tuqatihi, the one which he is entitled to. Okay, this is his entitlement. This is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu you're speaking about. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And do not die except that you are Muslims. Now this is, you could say, quite strange because we don't choose when we're going to die. So how do we know when to be Muslims? Well, that's exactly it. The message is that always be prepared for death and always be in the state of Islam. Okay, always be submitting. So whenever the hukum comes for whatever action, whether it's a hukum for Hajj, whether it's a hukum for Salah, whether it's a hukum for fasting, whether it's a hukum for anything, then at that particular time, bear in mind is that you should not die unless you are Muslim. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And grasp, if you remember yesterday, we spoke greatly and in detail about this grip, this grasping, and I gave you an example using my bookmark about how grasping is compared to just gingerly holding something between two fingers. Meaning, hold on to this. And it mentions again, bihablillah, the rope of Allah. Okay, this rope of Allah, hold on to it. And usually when you're holding on to a rope, then a rope has many purposes. A rope usually has something on the end of it. So a rope can have, for example, a pail of water that you're drawing up, okay, from a well. And if you let go of the rope, well, first of all, if you don't hold it tight enough, you're going to get, burns, rope burns, friction burns. And the second thing is what you're trying to draw out will end up falling back inside the well. So you need to hold on to that. Secondly, a rope can be used the other way, not necessarily drawing something up, but trying to use it to climb something. Okay, trying to get over a wall or something, or trying to climb to the top of something. So in that case, you're using the rope not to bring something to you, like sometimes we might use a rope to drag something towards ourselves, or we've got a rope tied across on a camel or an animal, or anything of that nature. In this case, we're using the rope to bring ourselves to somewhere else. So maybe you're trapped inside a well, for instance, or you're trapped inside a hole, and somebody hears your, screams for help, and they throw down a rope for you, and they tie the rope on a tree at the other end, and they say, right, brother, right, sister, climb up. And now you're holding the rope as you're climbing up. So what you're instructed is wa'tasimu bihablillah. Hold firmly to the rope of Allah. Okay, so obviously this is speaking figuratively, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always, you'll see, and this is the simplicity, but also the complicatedness of the language that Allah uses. It's simple that anybody can understand it because he gives examples of day-to-day activities. But it's also complicated because there are so many levels. So depending on the basira, the insight that you've been gifted with, and the ilm that you've been gifted with, you can draw a lot more from it. Whereas even a simple, maybe shepherds have got PhDs, but even a simple shepherd, for example, or even a nomadic Bedouin, for example, will clearly understand what the benefit is of holding tightly onto a rope. And that's what Allah uses. Jami'a, he also says collectively. Okay, hold on to the rope collectively. Jami'a, meaning don't hold onto it. Wala tafarraku. Don't separate into groups. And we have a habit of doing that, don't we? We have a habit of separating into different groups. We like to, form sects within our faith. We like to distinguish ourselves from everyone else. We like to consider ourselves superior to everyone else. That what we're doing is perfectly right and what everybody else is doing is absolutely wrong. And we'll go even further to say, they're innovators or they're kafir or they're this or the other. Okay, but we're told that once we are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that we should come together. Okay, as long as we are Ahl Sunnah, of course, there will be sects within our faith, unfortunately, or that will claim our faith, that will fall on the wayside. واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. And remember the favor of Allah upon you when you were enemies to each other. Now, we'll explain that in shortly as to who were enemies that Allah is referring to here. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And then فَأَلَّفَ, he brought your hearts together, he joined your hearts, okay? And you became, due to his ni'mah, due to his blessing, you became brothers, okay? Ikhwana, you became brothers. Now, when the muhajir, usually you'll hear that the muhajirun, that when Islam was first being established in Medina, we find there's two terms used for the groups of Muslims. There is a word that's called a muhajirun, or the ansar, a nasir, a helper, right? A muhajir, and it's very simple. A muhajir was an emigrant, somebody who has migrated from a different place, and a nasir is a helper. Ansar is a plural. And basically, the muhajirun were the Quraysh in Mecca, who once they had accepted Islam, and hijrah had become somewhat compulsory upon them, they were making hijrah across to the land which had been shown to the Prophet ﷺ in a dream, that this is a place that you will go to. And as soon as he set eyes on it, he knew this was the place. A oasis between sort of a black volcanic rock. And he recognized it straight away that this is the place that has been prophesied that we will go to. So when the muhajirun arrived, most of them arrived with nothing, hardly anything, just about the clothes on their back or what they could literally get onto the back of a camel. Even those who had some time to prepare, well, they didn't have anything to carry, what their whole, wealth and estate was. They could only take what they could put on a camel. And that would be the bare essentials. Many of them left houses behind. Many of them left land behind. Many of them left lots of animals behind. Many of them left their crops or their wares. They were mainly tradesmen. They left everything behind for the sake of this deen. They left it. Because if they hung around, then they would slowly be picked off by the mushrikun of Mecca, who are now clearly showing enmity towards the Muslims. And they're realizing, the families of each particular Muslim was realizing that we're losing these people. They're going somewhere. We need to stop them. So when they arrived in Medina, now let's talk about the environment in Medina. In Medina, there was a number of Jewish tribes. In Medina, there was also two polytheistic tribes, Arab tribes. One was called Aus and one was called Khazraj. And these two tribes pretty much fell out with each other quite regularly. They had tribal differences going back, centuries. And there would always be, an opportunity, unfortunately, where they would be at each other's throats, swords drawn, ready to kill. And they knew that this wasn't really a positive environment. And this wasn't really going to be good for business. It wasn't really going to be good for society. And they needed a mediator. They needed somebody to bring peace, somebody they could all look up to, somebody they could trust, somebody they could value, and most importantly, somebody who was not from within their tribes. Because if it wasn't somebody from Aus, then the Khazraj would feel that this is not fair. He's going to side with his tribe. And if it was somebody from Khazraj, then the Aus would say this is unfair. So, but this is Allah's will, isn't it? Qadr Allah. He structured it in such a way that they would need somebody like the Prophet ﷺ, and everything fits so neatly, like a hand in a glove, perfectly orientated. But we won't go too much into that because we're going to focus particularly on the Aus and Khazraj. And they were, at each other's throats. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that وَذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Remember this ni'mah, that you were at each other's throats, you were killing each other, you were polytheists, you were worshipping idols, you were burying your daughters alive. There's lots of things that you were doing that was wrong. But the main key point that's being addressed here is that you were enemies. Okay, you despised each other. Then فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَةِ إِخْوَانًا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joined between your hearts and you became brothers. So not only did Aus and Khazraj become brothers under one faith, and they removed their differences as though they'd never occurred, they also became brothers by one of them becoming a brother of a muhajir, okay, so that they could support him and they could assist him in assimilating him within Medina, so that he'd be able to, find a place to live. He'd know how to earn a livelihood, and he would be able to, find a wife to marry, because they'd come to arguably to a foreign land, and they didn't know anybody. They didn't know where to do business. And then, so this was a very, remarkable thing. And Allah mentions that this is a ni'mah. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ مِنْهَا. And you were upon the edge of the pit of the fire. فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ مِنْهَا. And then he saved you from there. Okay, so you were literally, close to destruction. You were literally close to being annihilated, and he saved you from that point. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. In this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies for you his verses in order that you may be guided. So the verses clarification, these signs that is shown you, to particularly addressing the Muslims in Medina before the Muhajirun arrived, that these ni'mas and these signs, he's explaining this to you to show his existence, to show his influence on your lives day to day, in order that this brings you more closer to guidance. So what we can take from this as ibrah, as a lesson, is that similarly, we would see changes happening to us. But because unfortunately we've removed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the equation, we always think it's what we're doing, the actions we're taking, the steps we're taking, the decisions we're making, or coincidence, or certain thing happens in a certain way, and we don't realize that. But because in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken to the Muslims of Medina that this was your state, and it was my intervention, and Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's intervention, to move you from this particular state into this state, and that is my ni'mah upon you. And I'm explaining this to you so that you may be guided. So similarly, we've got to take heed that, we may have been in a certain situation. Unfortunately, we're very, ungrateful. So we always remember the problems. We don't remember the good occasions. So we don't necessarily do shukr to Allah, but anytime something bad happens in our lives, we're always blaming Allah and saying that, I pray, at least 3 times a week. What's this all about? I'm a Muslim. Why is this happening to me? And why me, and all that kind of stuff. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And there should be from amongst you a group okay, a group, ummah, yad'una ila al-khair, who are calling people towards good. Right? So this is very important that every Muslim community has, and the ulama, right, that this is primarily about the ulama and about the mujahideen, but very much so about the ulama, because their job is to call people towards good. That's their primary function. So any community that does not have ulama within it, there's going to be a serious problem. Why? Because there's nobody calling people towards good. Now, I know that sometimes frustrates us. Sometimes it annoys us. Why is he telling me what I should be doing? I'm, free to make my own decisions. I want to decide what I want to do. But this is a responsibility that Allah has given to every group of people, every nation, that there has to be from that group, from that community, a few of them that will take on this responsibility, calling people towards good, and also وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, enjoining good behavior, enjoying good practice, not only encouraging it, but to, in certain extents, imposing it if they have the power, or at least imposing their will, or at least speaking in quite a firm manner to say to people and to enjoin this, because they have a responsibility to Allah. This is what they have to do. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and they're also prohibiting people from doing wrong. So this should start, for example, in the house. So the head of the house, his job is, with his wife and his children, is to do this, because that's his responsibility. He is the shepherd for his flock, and his responsibility is, but he has to become educated first in order to be able to take this responsibility. If he himself is ignorant, how is he going to encourage what is good? How is he going to tell people to refrain from what is bad? How is he going to call people towards good if he does not know what good is? يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. If he doesn't know what khair is. Khair is not just what you and I think is khair. Okay, it's not just humans' definition of good. We see that even non-believers will do good things. Okay, non-believers will do good things. Khair is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that this is khair, this is good. So, for example, praying 5 times a day, we might think, oh, okay, I'm getting a little bit of exercise. Okay, I'm going out of the house a little bit. Okay, I'm also meeting a community, so I'm, my mental health is good. Well, I can see some khair in it. But it's not that there's khair in it because it's stopping us from being punished in the hereafter. Fasting, okay, here's a better example. We might not see any khair in it. We think, okay, let me see what khair I can see in it. I've got to get up very early. Okay, I've got to eat at a time which I maybe not feel comfortable at eating. I'm then not going to eat or drink all day. And then I'm going to eat late than usual. And then finally, I'm going to stand for an hour and a half or a little bit more in my taraweeh. I cannot see any good in that. So I should abandon it. Okay, but that's where it's wrong, you see, because the good in there we can't see. Hence the reason why we have to seek knowledge first. And when we seek knowledge first, we become aware of what is khair and what is not khair. And Allah describes those people as saying, وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. They are those people who are successful. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ تَفَرَّقُوا وَاخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ. And do not be like those people who separated, who went into firqa, who went into sects, وَاخْتَلَفُوا, and they differed مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ, from after the proofs came to them. That's not what you need to do. And unfortunately, we'll see that even the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ will split into 73 sects, okay? Only the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, those who adhere to the Prophet ﷺ's teachings, and those who adhere to the teachings of the Khulafa Rashideen, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in, they will be protected. Anybody else after that with whose other views than that, they won't be. So it's not just saying, well, I'm a Muslim and I interpret this in this way, and I interpret that in that way, and I interpret this in this way. It's not your role to interpret. Okay, that's the role left for the ulama. And the ulama would only interpret in places where they're permitted to interpret. In other places, their job is just balagh. And their job is just to proclaim, to mention, to state. It is not their job to interpret when Allah has not given them scope or permissibility to interpret, when all He's told them is to make this statement, share this statement. Of course, we can explain, like what I'm doing now, but we don't have an opportunity to interpret in areas where we're not allowed to interpret. We only can interpret where we've been given permissibility. وَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And for them there will be a great punishment, a heavy punishment. يَوْمَ تَبْيَضُّ وُجُوهٌ وَتَسْوَدُّ وُجُوهٌ. On that day when faces will be ennobled and lightened, and other faces will be darkened, will be humiliated, will be disgraced. Okay, and this is something that we need to be concerned about, because we're all going towards our death. Death is a moments away. When we spoke earlier about, do not die except that you are Muslim. Well, we don't know when we're going to die, which in other ways basically saying is be Muslim all the time, or to the best of your ability. Why? Because you don't know when death will come. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ اسْوَدَّتْ وُجُوهُهُم. As for those individuals whose faces are darkened, أَكَفَرْتُمْ بَعْدَ إِيمَانِكُمْ. Do you disbelieve after you brought your iman? فَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْفُرُونَ. So taste the punishment regarding that which you disbelieved in. So when we've made iman, when we claim that we're Muslim, and we've made a statement that we're Muslim, whether we've given the shahada or not, and we know that we are, then we have to adhere to this deen. Many people say, well, no, I still have a choice. Okay, I have a choice, La ikraha fi din. I heard that somewhere, that there's no compulsion in religion. Well, this compulsion is regarding those people who are still deciding whether they want to commit to this faith or not. Those people cannot be compelled. Those individuals cannot be compelled into committing to this faith. They have a choice. They have free will to decide whether they wish to accept this faith or don't accept this faith. No one can compel them. The people who speak and say, well, Islam spread by the sword, or Islam spread by this. No. Yes, Islam conquered lands. We're not going to deny that. But that wasn't necessarily to say to people, you need to convert, otherwise we're going to kill you. No. That was because it allowed those people, those subjects that were under duress and pressure by the authorities, who were not allowing them to practice their faith, who were not allowing them freedom of choice. Islam wanted to remove that, so people had freedom of choice to be able to choose, so that they cannot say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, oh Allah, I did not have the opportunity to choose this path. So they have that opportunity. But once a person has chosen this as a way of life and claims to be a believer, he cannot then renegade against that. He cannot then, in his practice, do things which would put him outside the fold of Islam. You cannot then say, well, okay, I don't necessarily agree with this particular part of Islam. I don't necessarily agree with that particular part of Islam. I'm going to reinterpret that about Islam. I'm comfortable with this part of Islam. I'm not so comfortable with that. Words of that effect. What is that supposed to mean? Okay. What is that supposed to mean? That I'm not comfortable or I am comfortable? Once you've truly understood the deen, then there is a binding, necessary nature upon the believer to accept all that comes. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ ابْيَضَّتْ وُجُوهُهُمْ فَفِي رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. And as for those people whose faces have been ennobled, have been enlightened, have been brightened, then they will be in the mercy of Allah. For it is only the mercy of Allah that we will gain into Jannah. Without his mercy, everybody is doomed. Okay, everybody is doomed. It is only through his mercy that we will enter into Jannah. Hum fiha khalidun, and they will stay in there for eternity. Nowadays when you achieve something in life and you get, you're getting older and you've got a house and you've got a car, you've got a good business and you're doing well for yourself. And you probably, it may take you till you get to your 50s when you're in that kind of position. And then you're sort of thinking, well, I'm about to die now. I've done all this hard work. Okay. I've spent all my life studying. I spent all my life working. I've been spending all my life saving money. Finally got a house that I don't owe anybody to. It's a nice house. I'm happy with the house. I've got children. They've grown up and I've set them up in life as well. Brilliant. Business is doing fantastic, which means I can travel a little bit more. But now the doctors I'm visiting regularly, I'm getting warnings now about my health. Just when I had everything set, I'm going to now die. And people get a little bit frustrated with that. Well, that was the cycle of life here. The only place where you live for eternity is in the hereafter. Okay, that's why Allah mentions, hum fiha khalidun, they will stay in there forever. Did we ever do preemptive offensive wars? There were times, of course, where it was strategically wise to be preemptive. Okay, like they say, the best form of defense is offense. Okay, that is necessary. This is strategy of war. So when we go into strategy of war, then anything is valid. Any nation that wants to protect itself may necessarily take preemptive steps. It's without doubt. If for example, let's just say there's one country that's amassing weapons, that's amassing manpower, that is spending significant amount of its budget on defense, that is its spies are infiltrating into your country, you're catching its spies are trying to get back and write down information depending on how. Now it's only a matter of time before they're going to attack, because you don't have any peace treaty with them. You would be a fool as a general if you just sat there and said, let them punch me first. Okay, I'm going to let them punch me first, because once they punch me, then I can defend myself. Well, what if that punch is deadly and it kills you on the spot? Okay. So, we have to be sensible. And sometimes, this is kind of dressed up as being a problem. It's not a problem. No, it's not a problem. Right now, the US is considered as the country of freedom, and the country that lives accordingly, supposedly, with the best moral code and with the best standards. And, it's all about freedom and protection and freedom of choice and all the rest of it. Google it yourself, how many wars the US has initiated post the Second World War, and the number will astound you. Okay, the number will astound you. Not claiming that we should use, say, the US as a benchmark of how we should operate, but Islam permits its countries or its geographical group to defend itself when it sees that an enemy is preparing for it. Okay, is that the mistake of Bani Israel, that they didn't expect parts of? Yeah. That's absolutely the mistake of Bani Israel. They chose to abandon parts, and it's not just Bani Israel, it's also the Christians as well, that they chose to abandon parts which were uncomfortable, which were unpalatable. They extracted it from their religion. Otherwise, you'd see a lot of similarities between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It's the same source. You'd see a lot of similarity. Like, for example, Lent is coinciding with Ramadan. But if you look at what Lent has become, Lent is nothing like Ramadan. When Lent was also Siyam, it was no different. But you see what Lent has become? Because people think, oh, fasting all day is hard. Now, God forbid, but possibly in a few hundred years, Ramadan might become like that, unfortunately. Because the communities will say, oh, this is unhealthy to not eat for 24 hours. It's unhealthy to not drink for so long. I remember the debates and the discussions that were ongoing, maybe 10 years or so ago, when maybe even a bit longer, 15 years ago, when Ramadan was in summer. And we basically used to break fast at 9:50 and have suhoor done by 1:05. So there was lots of conversation. This is not healthy. This is causing this. We should revert to Meccan times. So people were suggesting going by Mecca's time. We already go by the Saudi for moon sighting. They were also suggesting going by Saudi's sunrise and sunset times as well, or dawn times and sunset times, because they said it's more feasible. And all sorts were being thrown around. So it's only a matter of time when several generations have gone by, unfortunately, when we change. Some say everything was defensive when we're challenged on Islamic expansion, but no one ever says anything was ever offensive. I said it's semantics, isn't it? If a party from your opposition comes and a raiding party, is that not a declaration of war? How do you determine a declaration of war, right? For example, if we look at modern warfare now, if your ship goes anywhere near the waters of a country that you don't have a peace treaty, then that's a declaration of war. If the senior leadership of a country makes, as they call it, saber rattling, makes, term statements that we won't tolerate this type of behavior from country X, then country X will see that as a declaration of war. So we have to see how we determine what a declaration of war is. Declaration of war doesn't necessarily mean that we send hundreds and thousands of millions of soldiers over with guns and say, they started it first, we're just defending ourselves. So declaration of war, as I said, because we don't study, war and battles, we're not really clear on what designates, war and what doesn't. That is madness. Absolutely. I don't know what madness is, but I agree with you. Can you clarify whose responsibility is to call towards good and warn them from evil? Is it just the ulama, or is it everyone's duty? I believe this is the basis of Tablighi Jamaat. It does fall on everybody, but we have to be a little bit savvy then about it. For example, if somebody parks their car in the wrong place, you're not going to go and say, brother, move your car, or let me take your keys off you, I'm going to move your car for you. Because that is technically Amr bil Ma'ruf. You're telling the brother not to park on double yellow lines. You do that, he might punch you in the face. Now, if he punches you in the face, you're going to hit him back. So we would have chaos. Okay, we would have anarchy. It's for this reason that we have to have a hierarchy of authority. That's why I gave you the example of a father, because a father has that hierarchy. He has that authority. He's the father, he's the husband, and he's the father. So, he's been given that status, so he can speak about that. Right? The ulama have been given that. They are our community leaders. It's their job to do that. But other than that, we don't have that say. For example, let's just say I'm eating in Ramadan, and some brother comes up behind me and slaps my hand, and the food drops out of my hand and says, "Astaghfirullah, brother, you shouldn't be eating in Ramadan," and I'm enjoying it good on you. I said, brother, what are you talking about? I'm a musafir. Right? Now, should I slap him back? So that's why, for everyone to take this duty, okay, we will have chaos and anarchy. So it has to be done via an authoritative structure. My apologies. Imagine opening your fast in the UK, Vice. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That is what was suggested, because they said it's too long to fast from, to fast from 105, because we were doing Nisful Layl, to fast from 105 all the way to 950 is 21 hours. That's just too long. We need to be realistic. Allah did not send Ramadan to punish us. He sent it to make us better people, whatever. So then we had a back and forth with regards to that. Khair, let's return to this. Tilka ayatullahi natluha alayka bil haqq. These are the verses of Allah that we recite to you. We recite them upon you, rather, with truth, because this gives an understanding now of the realities that were happening on the ground. وَمَا اللَّهُ يُرِيدُ ظُلْمًا لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And Allah does not intend to oppress the world. Okay, and this is not here to oppress us. Oppress would be where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not inform us about something and then punishes us for it. Okay, so for example, if I've got a student and the student, I don't know, walks into the room and I say, right, you got detention. So he's going to shake his head and think, for what was that? And I say, oh, because you walked in with blue socks on. And I say, oh, I didn't know I could wear blue socks. I couldn't wear blue socks. Oh, well, that's the rule. Now I've done dhulm on him. I've oppressed him because I didn't give him the knowledge first. I should have sent a memo around or put a notice up that blue socks are no longer allowed in the madrasa. Please don't wear them. And then another memo, another message, and then actually have a word with those students that were wearing it, and then start to bring that. That's not dhulm. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recites these verses so that we are in knowledge that we know this is a ni'mah. Imagine we had to work this out on our own. Imagine we had to sit down and work out what Allah wants from us all on our own. Every single one of us would come up with a different opinion. Trust me. We do that now, even though we have the Quran. Can you imagine if we did not have the Quran and we had to work out how to pray, we had to work out how to fast, we had to work out how to go for Hajj, all these things we had to work out on our own, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would oppress us saying, nah, you got the answer wrong. No, you got the answer wrong. No, you got the answer wrong. No, you got the answer wrong. We're going to say, oh Allah, why, tell us then. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his rahmah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his great favor upon mankind, recited all his instructions upon a human, the best of humans, i.e. the Prophet ﷺ, and then not only that, it was retained in written format and then protected from generation to generation to generation, that here we are in 2026, sat in the UK, 1400 odd years later, nearly 14 and a half centuries later, speaking in English, right, explaining the very same Quran which the Prophet ﷺ was explaining in Arabic to his companions. Doesn't that just shock you that that same message has been repeatedly shared by teachers to students over, nearly 1500 years, and is protected? And now when somebody genuinely wants to be a good Christian, unfortunately for him or her, he can't source good Christianity because it's all changed. If somebody wanted to be a good Jew, okay, a good Jew or Jewess, if that is the right term, and they wanted to access the true knowledge of it, they can't. Okay, they'll never find it. So their search is in vain because it doesn't exist. And on top of all of the fact that it doesn't exist, it's been abrogated. It's been, like we have the issue controlled policies that we have. That those two policies are now, out of date. They're put in archive. We just keep them for the sake of archive, so we know how the policy changed over a period of time. We don't resort to it for practice. For practice, it's the policy that we've got in the issue control policy we have now. But we have that just for to see the development and what mistakes we made along the way. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ. And for Allah is that which is in the skies and that which is in the earth, and towards Allah all matters return. Okay, all matters return to Allah. Nothing is kept back. Everything returns to Allah. And that's what we have to understand. It's cyclical. Okay, everything came from Allah, returns to Allah. It's a cycle, right? This just, this cycle which exists, it's always been there. All these matters in this way. I realize they have to take from Islam now since they've lost so much of their source material. Absolutely. So if any young person in whichever faith they've been raised and has an inclination in their heart to seek the truth, the only way they're going to find it is if they come to Islam. They cannot find it in any other faith because humans, due to their own weaknesses, have changed them. Now, it might be that it didn't suit them, but they were very short-sighted and they were very selfish because they only thought about themselves. And that's why we have to be careful as guardians of this faith, that we don't, for the sake of our weaknesses, permit things. Okay, we can't permit things because I don't want to wear a hijab, not the headscarf, but I don't want to do hijab properly. So you know what? Because I don't want to do it properly, I'm gonna reinterpret verses, and when I reinterpret those verses, I'm gonna interpret them in such a way so that they're okay for me. Yeah, but what you've done, sister, or what you've done, brother, is now when the next generations come along, they're going to take your interpretation. And even the genuine seekers of truth are going to take your interpretation. And they might have had capacity to do hijab properly, but because of your weaknesses and your selfishness, you're destroying nations which are coming after you. Well, who gave you permission to do that? You decided to do something yourself. That's on you. That's your choice, right? But you cannot say this is what Allah wants. This is what the Sharia wants. You have to turn that way and say, this is what I want to do. Okay, I know the Sharia says this, but this is me. Right? You don't have to add a value to that. Let the people add a value to it because they'll decide themselves that this is for whatever reason. So, we have to be very careful with regards to that. We are sort of 10 minutes away, so I won't start another ruku. I thought if there was like 15, 20 minutes, I'd start another ruku. But we'll leave it there, inshallah, and we'll start the next ruku tomorrow, same time, which we're going to look at kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, which again goes back to ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. So we'll come back to that inshallah tomorrow. If there's any specific questions with regards to today's verse, then please do ask. If not, same time. Remember, this is fixed time, inshallah, for as long as I'm available at 9:45 UK time. Saturdays, weekends, it'll be whatever, throughout the week. It's not any week that we're not. The only time will be is if I have a public speech to give, and I don't make it back in time. That's the only possibility, which at the moment only the 27th of Ramadan I've been booked. I'm trying not to book myself for any of the dates so that I'm available for this, because once I decided to do this, I've got to sort of stick to it, inshallah. As I mentioned yesterday as well, please do share this video, but also the links to other people, so people know that there is this that's going on. It's done at such a late time so that everybody's free from their day-to-day responsibilities, women and men. And on top of that, it's not done too late. So if people need to go to sleep, as soon as the dars is over, you can go to sleep and wake up comfortably 4:30, whatever time, 4:45, for your tahajjud, for your suhoor, then for your fajr, and you may even get a couple of hours in before you go on with your day, inshallah. So same time tomorrow. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.